It's time. Hello. Let me make sure that everything sounds good. I just made a bunch of changes to all of my sounds before the stream. Looks like my mic is coming through. Awesome. I've also got, let's see here, a little bit of rainy mood, perchance. And also, we've got some background music now, since these streams usually end up being me just talking to myself for about 4 hours, just, thinking out my thoughts while I'm working on code. Figured it might be fun to play some music, and normally you wouldn't be able to do that because obviously copyright and all that jazz will mute your video after the fact. But one of the streamers that I follow and am married to showed me how to set up our audio settings such that I can play some music on stream and it doesn't translate over to the VOD after the fact. So that's super handy. I'll give her a little shout out if that works. It does not. Oh, let's see here. We'll get into it in a second. Let me remember what my command even is. Nightbot. Shout out. I spell it out. There we go. Feel free to give her a follow too. She just hit affiliate. That's pretty cool. I'm on my way, so if you want to follow, go for it. But this was all relevant because we also post all of our Twitch videos on YouTube after the fact. So you can follow our YouTube channel over there if you want. But that's my little spiel. We should have some background music allegedly coming in. We'll see. I guess I can look at my OBS. Looks like it's in there. Hopefully it's not too loud over my voice or anything. But yeah, I'm Andrew. I'm one of the co-founders of Chroma Golem. We're a game studio that focuses more on the technical AI side of making new things possible in video games. So we started the studio last year. We've been making a lot of demos, a lot of them on stream, some of them in hackathons, some of them in game jams. And we've been trying to put them out. We're growing a little Discord for people to try them out in, and we've got a lot of good feedback. I guess I can go ahead and throw down the Discord link as well, but that's also in the video description. But we put out demos pretty often for trying out new things that AI allows you to do in games. So one of our very first demos was a little beat 'em up, like a NES style beat 'em up, where eventually the police show up and you have to convince them that you're innocent in order to keep playing. That was really fun because you have this free-form conversation rather than just picking chat responses that are maybe pre-populated or anything. So it was pretty cool to see players just making up random stories and trying to convince the police that they were actually the police and it's the police officer that was there to beat people up. But it was a fun little game jam we did. We have kind of built on top of that since then. If you want to check out our website at chromagolem.com, we've got some other demos. I won't go through them all right now. I feel like I've mentioned them all here and there on stream. But they're all pretty fun. We've got 3 or 4 out over on our itch page, and what we've been working on the last month or so is called Elixir Emporium, which also was born out of a demo that we did for AI crafting. So originally you could just combine any 2 items and make a new item. So that's kind of the gist of it. So obviously that's kind of cool, but it's not a game, first of all. But it's also not too different from if somebody were to put out a game and just hard code in 100,000 recipes or something. So we built that demo for crafting items And then we also built a AI layer on top for NPCs and giving them personalities. Obviously, you can talk to them. We took a lot of the logic from our beat 'em up, but we are also generating quests for them based on like their personalities, their profession, their place in this world that we're crafting. And that was a really quick 2D demo. I think I have a link for that as well. I'll just throw it up real quick. Why not? Just spam in the chat. But that's our 2D version that we were working on for maybe 2 or 3 weeks, I think. And we had a playtest weekend, and it went really well. I think we had like 7,000 people play it because it went a little bit viral on itch, just from people being like, whoa, I didn't know that this was possible, blah, blah, blah. It's kind of cool. But I'm kind of just chatting away now. I'll say we have expanded it a lot. It is a 3D open world game now, and we've been working on it for it's probably been a couple months now. But we've got a lot of the same things, but instead of just clicking around in menus, we now have a world that you can collect items from, which has a cool system in its own right. As you craft items, you will obviously craft some tools, and you can actually use any tool on any object in the game. So if you craft an axe, you can use that axe on a tree. You can use that axe on a bush if you want, fallen logs, rocks, whatever. And we actually use a lot of the same AI technology there to say like, hey, does a recipe exist for this? If not, then go generate one. What do you get when you smash an axe against a boulder? You probably get like little chunks of rock or splintered axe blade pieces, something like that. And it's actually, since it's generated on the fly, you get something slightly different every time you play, which is kind of fun. But you've got this big old world to explore. It's quite large. We worked on it a long time. It's definitely not done, but it's a good baseline to throw everything in to just get stuff working. We also have crafting, obviously the same sort of combine 2 items, get a new item. We're adding a few more layers into that, so you could, instead of combining items, you can have like an item that you keep and you're using another item to augment it. So good example of that is like you have a tool and you want to make it stronger or give it an element or something like that, or a weapon or whatever. We also have workstations. So over here you've got an anvil that you can use for like breaking down items. We've got a forge for like melting items. We have a very early stages of a religious system in the game where you can actually pray to this statue here with some whatever text you want and offer it an item, and it'll determine whether or not this deity wants to grant your wish and change your item however it wants. So that'll be kind of cool, I think. We've also got NPCs, obviously. I think I mentioned you can talk to them, but also they've got inventories. You buy items from them, you sell items to them. They all have quests and personalities and stuff. There's a lot to get into. We've got some basic skills systems. We've got a lot of like UI stuff that we're working on. We're probably going to swap out our engine for NPCs in the next week or so because our other co-founder, Andrew, has been working on some really cool stuff to give them like a really, really powerful brain. So each NPC can like query stuff about the world and determine if stuff is true or not, which is a big problem in AI generated things. But they can also manage their own like thoughts and what they know. And so we're going to give them a few actions to be able to talk to each other, learn new things, walk around town and decide what they want to do. So if this guy gives you a quest of like, hey, his anvil is running too hot and he can't use it, he probably isn't going to be at his anvil using it that much. He might be around town looking for stuff, or he might be out like near the lake trying to cool off or whatever the AI agent decides that that NPC specifically should do based on his current problem set. And also, that is the like quest system where the player is on the other end of the coin. They've heard this problem. They are now tasked with going out in the world, finding an item or crafting an item that'll solve this NPC's problem, and then returning it to them. And then we also use more AI stuff under the hood to determine whether that item solves this specific quest for this specific NPC with these constraints and conditions. And if it does, it progresses the quest in a new way. If it doesn't, it exacerbates the problem. And so you get this kind of cool progression of quests that I think is cool already, but I'm really excited to see where it goes when we have this new AI brain in each NPC. But I figure in a lot of streams, I normally have something big that I've carved out and I've been putting off, and I haven't really wanted to work on. Usually that's like UI stuff, so like browsing recipes. I didn't really want to build this window, so I built it on stream to force myself to build it. But we were getting to the point where we almost have our demo ready to put on Steam. I mean, obviously minus a lot of like the more final polish stuff, post-processing and textures and animations and stuff that we've carved some time out for, but systems-wise, everything is working, just about. So we have a lot of little tasks that still need done. So I figured maybe on this stream I might just throw in some music. We've got a nice little board here for what we're working through, stuff that we kind of need to have before the demo can be in anybody's hands. We've also got some should probably haves that I might work through, or nice to haves that I probably won't work through until after the demo is out there. And even further out, we've got, how do I even see? We've got a distant future, just a whole ton of stuff that we're like, ooh, this would be a really cool idea to add to the game that highlights a new way to play the game, basically, based on that AI stuff. But I figure maybe we can just work through some of these need-to-haves, knock them out, and get this demo out so people can actually play it. It's pretty fun. But before we knock into some of those, maybe I figure I'll just go around and talk to some NPCs and see if maybe I can solve a quest or two. I don't want to get too much into just playing the game today, because almost all of this questing and dialogue and stuff might change when we bring in the new brains. But it kind of is a good way to show off the systems themselves. So when you talk to this guy, for example, he's going to introduce himself. He's Brahm, the blacksmith. Braun, I guess. But also Brahm. He's got corny dad jokes, apparently. I'll need to double check that we are on GPT-4. I might have switched us back to 3.5 while testing earlier. Let me double check that. And I guess this is also a good time to point out that all this is built on top of the Chroma Golem API. So if you want to build something like this, you can. But let me just double check that we are on 4. Okay, yeah. So just an unfortunate generation there. I still need to tweak some of the prompts, but as I said, we're going to swap all this out probably next week. But after he's introduced himself, he's going to talk to you about the problem that he has. So that's based on his persona, his personality, and also his profession. And so soon it'll be based on more stuff like his relationship to other NPCs in the world. But basically right now, he is a blacksmith with some wants and needs. And right now, all the metal he forged turns to rubber as soon as it cools down, rendering it useless for armor or weapons. It's making my craft impossible, and my apprentices are losing faith in their mentor. That's this guy. Can you concoct something that might reverse the strange curse? So we've got a couple like generated prompts that you could click that'll generate some dialogue for you. or you can type your own message. So that's kind of the cool aspect of what if I found you some different metal? Would that be helpful? And so you can kind of have a dialogue of what exactly might be the right approach. What do they think will help? What do they think won't help? So he probably doesn't want a different metal. He wants to address the root of his curse. So we'll offer to investigate the source of the curse. And I just got a doorbell. I have a contractor coming for chimney stuff, so let me make sure it's not him. I will be right back. Oh boy, that's a lot of screens. Alrighty, sorry about that. Was not not the contractor. It is yet another guy looking to sell us stuff because we live in a house. Hey Tony, welcome in. Let me catch my breath. Just ran to the door and back. Alrighty, where was I? So we were talking to Braun about breaking this curse. So we're gonna look into what's causing the curse. We got the spirit of a detective too. His forge would owe us a great deal, and so on. So he'll probably give us a good reward. And all this conversation actually gets also sucked into all the AI stuff for completing the quest. So if he mentions that he'll give you a specific reward when we generate the items that he gives you as a reward, they will probably generate correctly. But yeah, let's investigate. Let's ask for some clues. Maybe he's got a lead for us. This would be a great place for the new system of like looking up knowledge about the world. A mysterious figure cloaked in black lingered near the forge the night before the curse struck. They were muttering something about revenge against the guild. Might be worth looking at any conflicts the guild has had recently. So I don't want to go down too far down this path, but you know, the local blacksmiths guild. Alright, so basically we've had a conversation with this guy. You can leave, and if he were to come back, he knows what the previous conversation was. Oh, I have things delayed right now. But it'll give a little summary of this guy is struggling with a curse, turning all forged metal to rubber. You've offered to investigate and break the curse, so he's going to ask if you've got any updates. So that's kind of the state that he manages, and he might have new things that he learns and talks to you about. And obviously we also have buying and selling items from him. I just realized that I'm not running the stable diffusion server that we have for running or generating the item images. Let me turn that on real fast, and I can show off crafting. But this is also a good example of when you're talking to somebody and you're just kind of like, I have no idea how I'm going to solve this guy's problem. Luckily, there are lots of other guys in town you can go talk to and learn about their problems. So this guy's hands become intangible whenever he works on precious metals. That's pretty rough, my guy. But I wonder if we were to buy some scrap leather, maybe use needle and thread on it. I wonder if the server is up. I think it just might have got up in time. So maybe we can make some like gloves or something for him. We got some basic leather armor. Let's combine that with a rune that we just bought from him. Maybe we can get some like magic armor or something. And I think somebody else in town has some like proper leather that's not scrap leather. Let's see what else other people have. And we might be able to go out in the world and collect some stuff too, but maybe the apothecary might have something for us. So maybe we take some hemp, some string. What have you got? Scrap leather, shears. Maybe we can make some gloves, we'll see. So we got leather working tools, okay. And maybe that with some hemp. All right. Hemp and leather working tools. Let's see what we get there. Hemp bound leather armor. All right, that's not quite what we need. We're definitely in the armor area and need to be more in the gloves, but let's just see what happens if we were to give him some runic leather armor. I don't think we have an animation for him thinking, but it's a good example of you give him an item. We see a little debug thing here of we gave him this item, didn't solve the problem, and then he comments on whether it's helpful or not. It's a marvel to behold, but it doesn't address the curse that plagues his hands. So maybe we go try with more of like a potion route, and the comments that he made are still going to get summarized into his like state of where the quest is. So maybe we can go over and get some, what have we got? Some mushrooms. All right, we have no money, so let's sell some stuff. So mushroom and fungus, mortar and pestle, maybe some bone. So let's start with combining that. And this is also a good example of the augment crafting system that we'll probably want to do. Like this is combining mortar and pestle with a mushroom to get powder of mystery, but you don't technically use up your mortar and pestle every time you use an item on it, so that's where you'd want to use mushroom on this to get this by consuming the mushroom, but leave this unchanged. So we got some powder of mystery. Maybe we can mix that with maybe something like healing. I bet the priest in town might have something for us for breaking a curse. We also have a little robber in jail over there. What do we got over here? We got maybe a salve, some aloe. So if we take this and we mix it with a salve, what have we got? Mystical healing dust. Okay, we're getting closer, but I think we need something that's curse related. So maybe we take our axe, and actually I'm gonna buy, let's buy another salve. Let's go chop down a shade tree. So this is a good example of, we don't have a recipe in the game of what happens when you use an axe on a shade tree. So the very first time you do it, it's going to generate that recipe behind the scenes. And now every time that you use that axe on the shade tree, you'll always get that. Versus if we were to maybe use a hammer instead, it's going to come up with a recipe for that as well. You'll get a different item probably. So now we're getting shade tree wood. And that's more what I was looking for. So maybe we can take the shade tree wood, saw it down, get something like shadowy is what I'm looking for. We could also go over to the anvil and break something down. So we got shade tree planks. Maybe minus, let's do tongs. I wonder what tongs give us. Shaded tongs. Okay, not quite what we're looking for. Let's try some scissors on the planks. And maybe we also break down one of the shade tree woods. Let's see what we get with that. So a wooden sculpture. Okay, it's getting closer. Got a shade tree sapling. Get a couple more of those. But I wonder, maybe if we mix the mystical healing dust with shade tree sapling. See what we get. And this is probably a good example of a flow of like running around town. So we got a life bloom sapling. Okay. That's kind of cool. I'm just now realizing we probably want the ability to like right click on an item and say open in your codex. So you can jump to it and see like what crafts it. But we're getting some cool stuff. It's not quite what we're looking for, but I think maybe if we were to take that and a salve, we'll mix our life bloom sapling with the salve. We've got a ghost tooltip. I feel like this bug comes back every week or so. I gotta fix that as well. But now we've got a bloom heart salve, a potent healing ointment infused with life bloom essence, drastically increasing health restoration, adding a chance to boost agility or provide temporary health overshield. So none of these affixes do anything in the game quite yet. Obviously you can't equip anything as the player yet, but these affixes are all used when you give an item to an NPC. So let's see what he says about the salve that we gave him. And while that happens, I'm going to write a little reminder that we need to have... Oh, okay. We've already got a UI animation when generating the NPC responses. So, he appreciates the effort, but the Bloomheart salve doesn't seem like the right fit for his curse. So that's kind of the gist of things. I think what we're going to do is probably just start from the top here. I think this is probably a fun one. I think everyone makes a spawner at some point in game dev. So we have this big old world, but it's pretty empty. It's pretty devoid of foliage, minus trees and the occasional bush. But we do have a ton of different like herbs that would be handy for cases like this where we're trying to craft a very specific potion vibe. So we have obviously like tall grass and clover and stuff, but we also have a bunch of flowers and herbs that have very provocative names or interesting names that we want to pass through to the AI, because at the beginning of the game it's going to generate like causes and uses for a lot of these herbs. So it's a little bit different every time you play, but they've always got the same names. But we've got like mend petal flowers, we've got Solar Blossom. We have Lavendream Flower, which might have been good for Curse. Zephyr Leaf. What else we got? Breeze Balm. Poppies. Deathcap Mushrooms. Let's name that. Deathcap Mushroom. And some tall grass. Like, we're going to add a lot more, but these are just some ones that we've rigged up so far. And they aren't spawning at all in the world because I didn't want to individually place them. And I also didn't want them to be in the same place all the time. But if you take a look at like our birch forest that we have here, there's probably just a circle we could draw in this area and say, spawn a bunch of these herbs in this area, place them randomly, and place them until there's this many in the area. So we want to keep a population of 50 or something. And so when you harvest an herb from over here, one of them maybe spawns over here. I think the obvious solution is to just place them randomly, but I'm wondering if using something like Perlin Noise might produce a better distribution on the ground, so they'll get more like clumping and streaks and stuff versus just randomly placed herbs everywhere. So I think what we'll do is we'll probably just place a spawner on the ground somewhere. Let's just do that, I suppose. So in our birch forest, let's create an empty object, I suppose. Let's put it at the same spot as this tree, just so we know that it's in a pretty central place and we can move it from there. So it's there. Let's give it a foliage spawner script, and we can build that out. And I think this is the point where I'm going to put on my headphones so I can hear this delightful music as well. And I'm just going to get to coding. And if anybody in the chat thinks the music is too loud, too quiet, or whatever, please let me know. If the rainy mood is too loud, please let me know. I think it's nice to be able to listen to a little bit of music while I work. But I'll probably still talk through a lot of stuff just because it sounds good to me. Awesome, thank you. I've just built the habit of talking and talking and talking every stream, so probably going to be a hard habit to break. But let's do this. Let's go public list of game object for foliage prefabs. So that'll let us add in a ton of just different herbs that we want to spawn in that area. That means we can also kind of decide like breeze balm and zephyr leaf can be in this forest, while deathcap mushrooms and something else can be over here. So that's kind of nice. We'll just drag them in here. Let's also say public float spawn radius. Yeah, that's fine. We're gonna also want to draw a circle on draw gizmos for that radius. That's cool enough. So now when we select it in the Unity inspector, we should be able to see a circle? Question mark, maybe? Unless our radius is really tiny. Or maybe I turned off gizmos. Okay, I turned off gizmos. Let's... don't really want all the gizmos on. Can I just turn off maybe nav mesh? A little suspicious that I still see nav mesh, but let's see here. All right. Maybe maybe we'll just turn it on temporarily. So what we've got here is all the AI navigation stuff. Kook Water Coaster, or Coatser. Man, just wanted to say you're hosting the stream so well. I hadn't noticed how few people were watching, but you're hosting as if there are 100 people watching. Well done, man. Keep on keeping on. Thank you, man. I use these streams a lot just to get myself in the zone and just code through the whole day and get a bunch of stuff done. So sometimes I don't pay too much attention to chat and I just go on, and seems to work well for me. So thanks for popping in. I really appreciate it. I'm just coding away, so feel free to hang out. But we actually, maybe we want to draw can we draw a circle? Probably not. Okay, we'll do the sphere. But this at least lets us visualize the spawn radius so we can get it spawning in the correct size for what we're looking for. So our town is over here, just getting a point of reference. And we want it to be kind of like, maybe I'm actually going to do a cylinder. Gizmos draw cylinder. They might not have a gizmo for it, or a cylinder. Ray, line. I mean, we could draw lines manually, but I don't think it's really worth it. We just want to get the right scale. So like this, you can only barely see it because it's green on green. Hold up. But we're just trying to get the right radius, basically. You appreciate the company. Are you working on anything fun today? You at work or at home? What you up to? Cool. So this is looking like a good radius, I'd say. And what we're going to do, we'll skip over the purlin noise just at the start to get actual spawning working, because I want to basically pick a random point in this sphere, probably in the top half of this sphere, and then I want to fire a raycast down so we can find the ground, and that's where we'll position the herb, because we have a lot of like hills and uneven terrain, so we can't necessarily just set a Y value or something. But I think once we get all that working, the like binding to the ground, then we can switch over to adding in the purlin noise, and I think that'll do a lot better clustering of herbs and like give us streaks and stuff, which I think will be really cool. So now that we've got the radius set up, I'm going to turn those gizmos back off. They're very distracting. And let's bring in some herbs to spawn. Plants. Are these all rigged up? Tall grass, clover patch. Okay, yeah. So we'll tweak them a bunch later, like the actual flowers that we choose to spawn, but I'll just grab a few. So all those, they can go into our foliage spawner. Almost 11 p.m. here. Dang. That's probably a good time zone to be in. A good place. I would assume that means you're not in America. But that's awesome. What are you studying? Anything fun? You in school? But happy to be good company. Hopefully, I just added background music this stream, so hopefully that's nice. Normally it's just me talking into the void. Let's see here. We want our foliage spawner. Let's go into that script. And let's do a static function for now that we can call from the inspector so we can test it without having to go into play mode every time. We'll just say public void spawn everything. Yeah. The two approaches we can take are really like, do you want to add to what we have already or replace it all? And I think replacing it all is probably the good approach here, at least what we're testing. So let's say a reset spawns. Actually, we'll give that a menu entry. Is that add component menu maybe? Is that how I get this? No. Menu entry. How the heck do I always forget these decorators. Unity call function from inspector decorator. Context menu, obviously. Reset spawns. Debug.log. Placing plants. And we also actually want public int numbered plants to place. Make that a nice range of 0 to, I don't know, 200. South Africa, nice. I work full-time and study at night. Currently busy with a degree in non-destructive testing. Music is a great touch, great decision. Wow, that's an intense degree. That's awesome. Non-destructive testing. Is that... I could see that descriptor being applied to so many industries. Like, even in computer science, there's probably destructive tests out there. Most of them are hopefully non-destructive, but I assume you're working more in like materials and like the physical world, right? That's cool. Let's make sure that this context menu does what I hope it does. We'll just reset spawns, placing plants. Cool. So all we're going to do here is for the number of plants to place, we will pick a random position in our unit sphere times spawn radius centered at our current position. And we are going to set the Y to something quite high, I think, because we want to make sure it's above the ground. So we're going to set it to like... I mean, we just want to make sure it's higher than the highest point in the area. So we'll use like 100. So we will say Y is 100. You're right, you work in the petrochemical industry. That's awesome. That is an entire world that I know nothing about. And it's always so interesting to see like a little window into those worlds and be like, wow, there's just so much out there that I don't know. That's awesome. Do you like it? It seems like something that some people probably really love. Some people do because, you know, it's probably good money too. But hopefully you like it. Random position. Random flora. We will instantiate our random flora at the random position. We're actually going to... We want to parent it under our spawner so we can control, or so we can make sure it's easy to reset all the plants. You'd rather be making games. Yeah, I only just got into making games last year. Andrew, who I think is in the chat as well, made me an offer I couldn't refuse. I was a web developer, And he's like, hey, you've always wanted to make games ever, right? And I was like, heck yeah. He's like, you want to make games? We got this. So it's worked out pretty well so far. I really, really like waking up and this is what I do all day. So it is very rewarding. I liked web development too, but I'm glad that streams like this scratch an itch for you. I try to be a little educational in the streams. I mean, I don't really know the technical level of the people watching, so I leave it open to a lot of questions. But I try and talk through things, keep it a cozy vibe, and make people feel like they're coding along beside me. So you can just pretend that you're coding along beside me. It's a cool game. Good job. So if we set our parent to this transform, can we also set a position? Probably not. So let's just set it separately. Or maybe let's trust in our robot overlords and say parent under this transform and position at random position. Will you do that for me? Apparently yes. Okay. So this now places the flora randomly in the world. Since it's a sphere, it's going to be distributed a little bit more towards the center, I think. So it'll kind of be less dense on the outermost points, because when you consider this area, and Andrew, if you're in the chat, please don't judge my math. This is just logic for me. I hope it's right. But if we're picking a random point in this sphere, if you measure like from the ground to the top of the sphere here, there's so many more points here that it could pick versus the ground to here. There's fewer points. Oh, thank you for the follow. It's supposed to tell me who followed, but okay. I assume it's you. Thank you for the follow. I actually stream this time on Tuesdays every week, so hopefully you'll come on back and enjoy. There are a lot of cringy streams out there, so I feel like, I mean, I see a lot of streams where people they're working on cool stuff, but they also don't really put a lot of effort into the stream itself. I like to put a little more effort into the stream too, so I hope that's nice. But yeah, math. I'm just going to assume that since Tony hit me with the LOL that my math is right and not wrong, that generating a random point in a sphere and then lowering it to the ground is going to concentrate more in the circle, in the center versus on the edges. I'm just going to go with it, and I don't really care if it's right or wrong anyway, because we're going to find out. But now if I click reset spawns, we should now have a ton of plants placed throughout the world. Let me turn off these gizmos. And it's really hard to see them because they are so small, but we do indeed have a ton of plants. Cool. And what we're going to do next is just, for each plant, we'll take its position. We will send a raycast down to the ground. And then where it meets the ground, we will take that point and reposition the flower onto the ground. So I hope that works. That'll probably work, I assume. So now we can say game object flora is equal to that, and we'll say fire a raycast downward to find the ground, max distance 150. So yeah, that should work. We could mask the raycast to only collide with the ground layer. We should probably do that so it's not gonna like hit a tree and be stuck to the tree. But let's go ahead and let's do that, if I can remember how. So we want layer, ground layer is, I think we call it ground. Yeah, we do. So we'll add that in. Let's regenerate this because it'll, oops, now use the layer mask. And so now it should only collide with the actual ground and not like trees and buildings and stuff. So if we now, we do need to modify this a little bit because it's reset spawns. We want to add in the logic for clearing the existing plants. And that's just going to loop over all the children objects in the spawner and destroy them. So let's respawn all those. Let's see if we get our plants on the ground now. Destroy. Oh, it might have done it, but not destroyed the old ones correctly. Okay, these guys are on the ground. Cool, cool, cool. So we just need to use destroy immediate instead. Okay. Oh, that's kind of annoying in that we need to say call destroy if, or destroy immediate if we're doing this from the editor, destroy otherwise. So let's see if we get a nice like if editor. Yeah. All right, that'll work. Just because we want to be using this function in the actual game logic itself, but I just wanted to test it with the context menu. We shouldn't actually need it in the inspector, but it might be nice for placing some initial flowers and getting them looking good. But let's go ahead and reset those flowers again. They should all be on the ground now versus some being in the air. Let's see if that actually works. All right, it does. It doesn't. So, alright, it's whatever. We can just update this to destroy when we switch over to using the real code. Let's try once more. They should all destroy immediate now, right? Yeah. Okay. Sure looks like they are all on the ground. And even on varied terrain, they hit the ground correctly. Alright. Oops, we got a water hole here. Raise that terrain. Cool. Alrighty. So now, that's the easy part. What we want to do, let's actually, we can turn off the trees and bushes so we can kind of, nah, it's so hard to see where the flowers are with the visualization because it's just such a big area. Okay, that's probably fine. Like I was gonna turn up the density, like if we do, I don't know, 1,000. It kind of looks the same, just because it's such a big area. This does not look like there are 1,000 flowers. I'm pretty sure that's not 1,000 either. 3, 6, 9, 10 is one chunk. So that's 20 is like most of the window. 40, 60, 80, 100. You know, maybe it is like 200. Oh, right. Because we increased our spawn radius, not our number of plants. That makes sense. I don't remember what it was. So we're gonna just, okay, it was 100. Now if we did 1,000 plants here, and we were to select all those, so they're high. I'm not convinced that's 1,000 either. That's 200 because our range maximum is too small. All right, let's try this once more. I just want to see what it looks like with 1,000. Like, it's probably going to be way too many plants, but what if it's cool? We probably want 1,000 anyway, just for testing our Perlin noise. Okay, it looks almost the same to me. I guess we want to select them all to get the highlighting in the inspector. I mean, yeah, that is too many for sure, but it's kind of cool to see it work. They are all placed along the ground. Alrighty, so how do we want to change this to use Perlin noise instead? Can we literally just, not that, can you modify this code to use Perlin noise for distribution instead of a random position? Don't know if that'll work. That's legitimately a little crazy if this works. Okay, X and Z are from the Perlin noise function within the sphere. We use Perlin position instead. We can't raycast from that position. I'm down to try it out. Don't really know if we'll be able to tell if it's right or not, but I mean, they are pretty like evenly distributed here for the most part. Like, there's some clumping, but it's pretty clearly randomly placed. But now, if we were to reset these spawns, are we gonna get more of these like streaks? Kind of. It does seem better. I feel like there's like a height function for Perlin noise that we should be using instead of a number of plants. We should, because what it's doing is basically making this random pattern, and we want it to place plants wherever the black is black enough. So like some areas like here, it's going to be really dense with plants, and then it's going to get less dense on the edges, but it might streak over to here, be dense over here, but white is not going to have any plants. So we don't necessarily want like a number of plants. We want a threshold for from white to black. At what point do you start spawning plants? So what if we just I feel like this isn't gonna quite be right because I mean, I guess we can just go over each point in the sphere. It's definitely not going to be as fast because we're doing way more loops, but it probably doesn't matter because we can bake this in before and just like compile the plants in their position. We can just do this in the editor. So a threshold of 0.5, so halfway between black and white is where it'll start spawning plants. And it's gonna go over the, pretty sure that's a square, right? Yeah, it's just gonna do a square, which, you know, I'm okay with. We're gonna want to do it like over the whole world anyway, I think. Maybe we can just do it in chunks. Let's see what that looks like. Alright, so these guys, yeah, I guess we can't even see the edges very well because of just how big it is. It'd probably be worth decreasing this spawn radius while we're working on it. Gizmos, let's say spawn radius of like 50. Maybe even, let's do 10 for now. Reset the spawns. That's looking a lot better. So you see these patterns like streaks throughout. So if we increase this to like 50, it expands out that way. And if we, let's change this threshold to be a range from 0 to 1. And then let's scale it down so we don't get quite as many plants. Well, maybe like half. Oh right, I forgot I have rainy mood on. I heard the lightning or the thunder and I was like, it does not do that here. Wish it did though. Alright, half as many plants. That's twice as many plants. So it's actually white or black to white or whatever. I just had it backwards. So this should be fewer. Okay. A little suspicious that it's fewer every time. I don't think that is correct. Are we not deleting them correctly? Let's do this. Okay, and if we bump this up to like 0.9. Okay. Sure feels like we get fewer plants every time we reset. Why would that be? And also the plants aren't moving, so we're destroying all the existing plants here. They are being parented, so they are in the group to be destroyed. Oh, well we're not, I mean the Perlin noise that we're using isn't changing. So it's going to be the same pattern every time, I think. I think that's fine. We probably, I don't know what people normally do, maybe have like a multiplier on the coordinates to give like random number times x and z, so you get a different pattern every time. Let's just ask, I guess. Modify the seed for Perlin noise. Yeah. Just get a random number for a seed, and then I assume... Oh, you add the seed. Okay, that's fine too. Yeah, we can do that. Copilot still continues to blow my mind every time I use it. I feel like a lot of people use it to just do things for them, and it's great for that, but it's also so good at explaining things. And like, you learn new things that way too. Would recommend. Alright, so now every time we reset, we get a slightly different pattern, but the spawns aren't decreasing. I do think that some of them are staying the same every time though, so I feel like there might still be something going on. So if we were to take this all the way up to 1, we should get no spawns, I would assume. I wonder if the min and max is not 0 and 1. Let's bump this up to 1.1. I want to see if 1.1 results in no spawns. Because if the max for Perlin's output, I guess we can also see between 0 and 1. Might be slightly below 0 or beyond 1. Interesting. But we bump this up. Now we still get some, which is a little weird, but and more of them go away every time, which is super weird. So now if we take this down, we get some back, and it feels almost like some of these are just not changing, which is wrong. But maybe not. Oh. Alright, well, I think let's just find a good number for our threshold. I want to try this. We want to make sure that they are all being deleted. So let's delete them all and then not regenerate them. Yeah. So I wonder... This is almost the functionality of like if you had a for loop and you iterated over it with like for I is equal to 0 to array.length, and then you did array at I dot delete, it's going to skip over half of them, and it almost looks like that's what's happening here, where it's only deleting half. So I wonder, I mean, this is clearly wrong. So destroy immediate. I wonder if there's something weird with that. You're strongly recommended to use destroy instead. Editor scripts, weird behavior. Not all of the objects get removed, just a subset. That's what we're doing. Exactly the same code. Roughly half of the children are being destroyed. That makes sense. Destroy is also delayed. Always delayed. We could do a while loop and just keep doing it until they all get destroyed. Huh. I wonder why that is. I nailed it. If you iterated over an array or list while removing every element, you would skip over every other one. That's exactly what's happening. Because you'd remove the element at element 0, which then your loop goes to 1, but the element that was at 1 is now at 0, so you're skipping over that and deleting the next one. That's crazy. Thanks for the company. Hopefully I'll see you next week. Cheers. Yeah, have a good night. Good luck with whatever you're studying for. Hope it goes well. I'll see you next week. All right, well, we know why this bug happens. It's a crazy bonkers bug. Let's go ahead and let's leave this using destroy. And we'll use that when we are actually ready to use this at runtime. But for now, we'll add our janky AF inspector delete hack. So this will just look at all the children. It'll delete half of them in one pass. It'll do it again and delete another half, and so on. So now, when we reset these spawns, they should all disappear at once. Perfect. Now we can bring back our generation and actually test things. What are we listening to here? What is this? Sharon Von Etten. I don't know them. Alrighty, reset spawns, looks good. Now we're getting a different pattern every time and roughly the same amount, which is good. Cool. So this might actually be a pretty good threshold. Maybe we just round it up to 0.9. Reset those. And I do like the streaky distribution that we have. Alright, well, let's pump our spawn radius back up to, was it 200? Let's reset those spawns. We've got it everywhere now. And maybe let's turn on our trees and bushes and just go run through, see how it feels. They're probably still too frequent. Because I probably also want to add just like a lot of tall grass. But these herbs themselves, I want to be a little rarer. But it is nice seeing them everywhere. And we also kind of have to think about, like, if you cover this field in interactable tall grass, is it going to be hard to move around if you're just clicking on it? Because if you click on it, you will go there and harvest it, but... Yeah, did a little harvest in there. Okay, okay. We broke some stuff. Alrighty, so what I want to do is let's take out the big grass and the clover. Just get these guys. Let's make them less frequent. Reset those. Maybe even less. Let's do 0.99. How frequent is that? That's probably closer to what I'm looking for. It's still a lot, but I think that's fine. And then what we'll do is we're going to add another foliage spawner. And this will just be for tall grass. So let's just grab all our tall grass. Maybe we can do the clover as well. Oops. Oopsies. Spawner, lock, tall grass, and clover. So if we bring all these guys in, spawn radius, but we set our per lane threshold of like 0.3, so it's like everywhere. And we just reset those spawns. It's probably gonna just flood us with yeah, okay. Let's just run through, see how it feels. If it's even playable, not laggy. That's so many colliders I just added. We'll see. Definitely way slower to load in. We'll see if my 4090 can handle it. Huh. Alright, how's this frame rate gonna be? Are we exiting? We did exit. We click it once this time, even though it was delayed. Alright, so what I'm picking up the Unity is putting down is this is not the approach that we should take. Yeah, we got some frame skips already. Frame rate is way lower. But it does look beautiful. I wonder if we were to disable all the colliders on all of these until we were a certain distance from them, then it might work. I also feel like it's very clearly on a grid still because of these. It is not using like half values or float values. It's just x equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that I would say is not good. Don't really want this grid look. But we do want to see just like, is it okay to move around in this field full of flowers? It's kind of nice having the clover and the grass everywhere. If it clumped a little nicer. Oh. I wonder, does it not interrupt? Oh, I think we only interrupt harvesting when we click on the ground. Yeah. So if you're harvesting something and you click on something else, it keeps harvesting apparently. There's a bug. Or maybe not. Huh. Weird. Wonder if it's the same object. So that was tall grass. Now we could do clover patch. Nope, still the same. Tall grass. Okay, well, still a weird bug, and just placing this many things is not going to work. So we'll need to figure out a different approach, probably disabling colliders on all of them until you get close enough or something. And a really simple way to do that would probably be to have a lot of foliage spawners that have much smaller radiuses, and then have the spawner itself be computing the distance to the player, and have the spawner itself be toggling on and off the colliders for its small radius when the player is near enough. But I think all that is a little pre-optimized stuff that I don't really need to worry about too much. What I'm going to do instead, let's bump this guy up to half as many. Let's reset those, make it a little less clunky to work with. I do want to update the loops here to at least do like half or a third increments instead of full integer increments. But obviously that's not going to work if we cannot work in the inspector. Alright, so this is looking better, I'd say. Actually, like, the grid effect is way less pronounced here. So maybe even, like, we bring this up to 0.8. What we probably should do is just have prefabs of large, like, clover patches instead of making a clover patch with 100 different clovers. But with this more in place, we still have a couple frame drops already, so still not going to work, but it is looking better. We have mostly clover and grass, but we also have herbs here and there. We're getting it in town too, which is kind of nice. Might want to reduce that radius a bit and handle town separately. But, I mean, all these tall grasses are interactable, which is kind of nice. Let's make a nice tool so we don't have white boxes everywhere. Lumberjack's toolkit, nah. Scythe and a hoe. Harvester's Glory, sure. So use Harvester's Glory on tall grass. What are we going to get with that? Yeah, and I also notice, ooh, pristine straw. Finely cut and surprisingly high quality. Perfect for crafting or as animal bedding. I also notice at night, the textures get really, really funky. The day-night cycle is something I haven't really built yet. I literally just have a light that's rotating at a constant speed in the sky, so I think looking at stuff in the day is going to make a lot more sense for how things will look. And at night, you get kind of these underlighting and lack of shadows and stuff, which I don't necessarily like, but that will change. But this seems fine. Like, it could even be less dense than this, or it could be more. It's more just like a style, I guess, at this point. It is pretty barren still, I'd say, especially at night when you see none of the texturing. Oh, we got another water patch. But maybe we'll leave that there. The system works. I think maybe, what if we leave this water patch and deepen it a little bit? Make a little pond. And I bet this, because there's now no ground here, we wouldn't actually place a flower on this. I do want to add in a little, if it doesn't ever hit the ground, we can destroy this game object. So in cases where when we pick this point, for example, for a flower up in the sky and we raycast down to find the ground to place it, if there is no ground, we should just delete that foliage that we created. So let's try that once more. Just gonna do it a couple times, make sure we don't get anything spawning in the water. Not the most rigorous test, but seems fine. Cool. Now we have a little pond over there. That's kind of nice. I mean, we'll want to decorate it and stuff, but another source of water is always good. Let's see here. Let's decrease this guy's radius as well, because we're getting some stuff in town. Wait, that's herbs. Alright, we can decrease both radius. So 160 should be good. I guess we can. So are you telling me that 200 is in town? Because I don't believe it. Why were plants over here? We'll still decrease it, but that's funky. Let's turn that off. Let's get this guy 160. Reset both. They are really just going right up to the town walls, aren't they? Huh. Okay, that seems fine. Alright, so that works just fine. And we can come back to this spawner another time. But for now, it spawned the stuff we need. It doesn't cause frame drops because there's way less of it. But we have the ability to increase how much we spawn later when we do that optimization. But for now, at least we have the herbs in the game for the player to use. So that looks good. I think I will take a quick little refill my water, go to the bathroom. I'll be back in just a couple minutes. So thanks for tuning in, guys. It's fun so far, and nice to have you here. Be right back. Alrighty. Where were we? Alrighty, we've now got a nice little foliage spawner. We could place that around more in the world. Seems like something that I might want to just play around with off stream, just because it's more vibes, seeing how things look and feel. We could do it one like along the edges here. But a lot of it is just kind of world design, and maybe we'll do a full-on world design stream again one day. That was so fun. Let's go look at our list of stuff that we needed to do. So urban foliage spawning, I'll leave it in progress because we need to add more spawners throughout the rest of the world, but it does work, which is nice. And we're using Perlin noise for better distribution than just random. And we've got a little bit of a threshold here. We still need to do some optimizations on like managing the colliders and stuff, but it works. So that's nice. Next up, a top level codex window for all the objects you've interacted with, linking to their codex detail pages. So I guess that's probably interesting to do on camera. What that is, let's say, if I use my bare hands on this tree, I'll use an axe, a hammer, maybe some scissors. Let me craft a couple things from this tree, but bare hands give you oak saplings, axe is probably going to give you oak logs. Basically, in this game, every object is interactable, and you can craft your own tools, so there's a lot of combinations of every tool on every object is going to give you new items. You see that already as it's generating all these new items. And you'll also see that when you like right click on the tree itself, it shows what each of the items on your hotbar will give you. So bare hands gives you oak sapling, oak logs, rough oak logs, blah blah blah. When you have a tool that has an image, it'll also show up on the left hand side here. Let me just craft one of those for completeness sake. We got our craftsman's multi-tool. Let's put it over here. So rough oak logs, I suppose. So now you see that over on the left-hand side. This tool gives this blah, blah, blah. And so as you progress through the game, obviously you're going to use more and more tools on each object. You have this new check notes feature, which brings up a window for that object specifically, the oak tree, and it shows all of the different items that you can get from it and what tool you need to use to get that item. So if you want oak saplings, you need to go use your bare hands on an oak tree. If you want oak logs, go use an axe. And as you'll see, one of our other things is images on all of our starting items. We don't have images on all our starting items, so they're just white boxes. Disregard that. But you have that for the oak tree, you have that for bushes, you have that for each of the herbs, you have it for stones, for rocks, for animals. There's gems, there's geodes, there's water. There's tons and tons of stuff. So for a bush, if you want a handful of berries, go use your hands, and so on. Right now, the only way to see all these recipes is to right-click on an object and click Check Notes. But I think it would be nice, in the same way that you can click this little button down here and see all the combination of item recipes that you have discovered. We should probably switch this window back to just the ones you've discovered. It's all recipes right now just for testing. But in the same way, you can go through this list and say like, oh, I need to craft maybe a black diamond. What do I need? Oh, ash and crystal. And then we probably should make it so you can like right click on ash or something and it'll take you to how do I get ash. Maybe we'll have an item page in the codex itself so it shows the crafting recipes and also what objects you can get it from. That's probably a good idea. But right now we have this codex for browsing recipes, crafting recipes, but we don't have one for browsing all the objects that you've interacted with. So we probably need something like that that shows bush, tree, blah, blah, blah. You click on it and it takes you to this window. So I guess we'll build that, but I'll check in what we have so far. Make sure all this looks good. We did some terrain changes. So we got binary changes. Rig up foliage spawners and add a couple to the birch forest. Coolio. Alright, UI is my least favorite thing to build in Unity, but I think this is a cool enough window that I think that'll carry us through. So here's what we're going to do. We still need to build some sort of system that doesn't let UI windows overlap. For example, you might have seen when I had both the alchemy recipe window open and this notes window open, when I closed one it still showed the other. We still got to fix all that, but what we're going to do is just add another window. So we will have codex object index window as our new one, which will display all of the objects, and we'll rename this to our codex object detail window. To use nomenclature from web development, we get our index and detail pages. What we're going to do is unpack this prefab so we can make all the changes we want without them persisting over to this guy and deleting everything that we built last week, which I did last week. But now we can go over to this guy and start working on our new window. And I'm going to probably just turn up the music a little bit and just vibe while I work through all this boilerplate, I think. So feel free to jump in the chat if you have any questions or comments, or just want to tell me that everything I'm doing is wrong or the most amazing thing you've ever seen ever. So happy to hear it all, I guess. Where's my Spotify? I can't hear this song without wanting to walk funky. We'll get some better titles eventually. We could add tabs back here for like trees or foraging, stones, that sort of thing. It's probably a good idea, but we need to classify our world objects into a category. Might as well just do that. This is not me procrastinating the UI, I promise. We'll just stick to 2 categories for now. I don't know what all categories we want actually. I guess we can take a quick look in a completely different scene that doesn't need any UI whatsoever. We jump over there. So these are all the objects that we have in the world. Why can I not navigate through this space? Everything is broken. Collection was modified. Oh, it's just Unity crashing. Okay. Let's try this again. Guess I can't do any UI. Alright, so we definitely have like trees, we have bushes, we have foraging stuff, and we have stone and gems. So really, all that green stuff could be under foraging, trees, bushes, herbs, and mining could be under, or stone. We got some like pillars and stuff, gemstones, pebbles. Rune stones. Sure. Let's just call it stone and organics. Sure. 2 good categories to start with. We will go back to our scene and build our UI now. Or, actually, what we should do is now go look at all our bushes. Let's make a default of uncategorized. So hopefully they'll all default to that, but we'll set all our bushes to gathering, or organics, I guess. Why are they? Oh, I see. We need a object category. Organics. Dead trees, all y'all, organics. We should apply all these prefabs so they take effect in the other scene as well. Tree branches. Sure, all y'all can be organics. Let's do this. Dead trees, already gotcha. Tree branches, particle effects. Yeah, you guys can be whatever you want. Uncategorized plants. Organics. Apply. Chests. I guess at that point we probably want like man-made. Sure. And apply. Just now realizing, oh, that's chest 2. Okay, we have another chest, right? Yeah, this guy's an actual workstation. We're not actually using this guy. But if we were, he'd be in the man-made category. Mossy rocks, all y'all. Stone. Wow. And let's make sure we applied that prefab. Okay. Stone rocks, all y'all. Some of you don't have. Okay, we can fix that. Let's copy. We got black rock, Or rune stone. What are you? What are you? Ashes, maybe? Could do a river rock. Kind of like ashes for that. Let's find in our project view. Is that an option? Let's do ashes. And he probably belongs in a new category now. Maybe just props for now. This is a bop. Alrighty, all y'all now. You can be stone. Model prefab. Quick side note, for all of your Unity questions in our Discord, the Chroma Golem Discord, we have sages that are very, very smart, and you can ask them anything you want in Unity, Unreal, or Godot. And I want to ask, what's the difference between a prefab and a model prefab? Because these guys are apparently model prefabs, and we can't apply changes to them? Question mark, question mark, question mark. So we'll see what the sage says. Prefab is a reusable game object. You can create and reuse multiple times. A model prefab refers to a specific type of prefab that primarily contains a 3D model, such as a character, typically imported from 3D modeling software, include meshes. So it just can't have scripts, I guess. Follow-up question, how do I convert a model prefab to a regular prefab? So you basically just make a new game object, nest your model prefab under it, and make the game object a new prefab. Huh. Alright, it's whatever. We don't need to worry about these guys for now. We are getting distracted. A lot of our ruins might be in man-made, but we're going to throw them in stone for now. Crystals, also stone. Birch trees, organics. All of this is just so we can have some tabs on our panel that we're about to build. So you're not just going to have a giant list of everything. You're going to be able to, I mean, you'll have a giant list of everything, but you can filter stuff down into just the type of thing that you're looking for. We saw that in our crafting recipe window where we had a giant list of things and it was completely overwhelming. So the very first thing that we did was add filters to make the list a little bit more manageable. All right, to speed up this process, what we're going to do is expand all these guys. We'll just do our trees for now. So we got these. Who's missing the interactable world object prefab? These guys. All of these guys. Okay. We will say unnamed tree. We'll come back and name them eventually. And I guess we can just name them now. Black pine tree. These guys, organics. I guess we'll set all these in a sec. These guys are maple tree. These guys are cherry blossoms. So now we can say wham bam, all the way down. Set all these organics, all of them apply, please. A little suspicious that that didn't have organics already set. None of these do. Organics, organics, organics. Huh. What'd we miss? Is it because we set organics on some of them? Game development. Contains an invalid script, you say. Oh, the LODs had some script, I guess. Well, I guess we need to clean all up this anyway. Alright, so Black Pine Tree A should be fixed. Is fixed. Are you broken? Yeah, I bet all of these guys are. Alright. Well, hope this is the content, the quality content you all are here for. We're just gonna vibe. Wish I could time lapse real life. It's gonna be all of them. I guess I can do all this without going into the prefabs. That might be a little faster. So I'm pretty sure it's just LOD 0 and 1 on all of these, but I'm clicking into 2 just so I don't want to miss one. Alright, we're looking good. Let's try this again. They should now be savable. We can do them all manually. Find out where the problem is, I suppose. What do we miss here? Contains an invalid script. But where? Oh, we did need to go into the prefabs. Oh no. Alright. Take 2. It'd be a real shame if Unity were to crash right now with all these unsaved changes. Alrighty, fingers crossed. Wait, did I miss one? No. Okay. Fingers crossed now. Organics. Apply all. Wow. So it's just our Japanese trees that we ripped out of a asset, stripped the scripts from. Alrighty. NPCs. We probably don't want them in that panel, and they are generic interactable NPCs, so we can just exclude them, I believe. They're not going to be in the object tool database anyway. So when we iterate through everything there to populate the window, they won't be in the list. Same with all our entities, dragons, workstations, the same. They're not going to be objects. The ashes might be. And then we have a little fence that we're not using, not rigged up to anything. Water, though. I don't know what category that goes into. Uncategorized. Perfect. This song is unhinged. Alright. All of that yak shaving is done. We can get back to the UI. But now all the objects in the world have tags. So when we are listing them in the UI, we can set up our filters the same way we did the crafting filters. Cool. Let's get back to it. So here, we will now have a new codex object index window manager. That'll loop over our tool object database, create some rows for every object that the player has interacted with, which is what populates the database. And then we will just create an instance of the row that, when clicked, takes you to that object's detail page with all their recipes. So let's actually open that in case we want to steal some code from it while we port this stuff over. But we should be good. Nested under UI window, and we're golden. I am bopping along, but I will turn this music a little bit lower. And I'm just now realizing how silly I'm gonna look in the VODs and the recorded video if I'm just dancing, but none of this music actually gets saved to the recorded video, so I'm just gonna look like a guy who just does this all the time. But, you know, for the music, I'll allow it. Alrighty, so what we want is public void draw index, and the way that'll work is it's going to delete all the rows from our content containers viewport and loop over our tool object database to create new rows that we'll just have button events hooked up to. So what we want to do is create a row. We don't have images actually for objects. We might be able to like programmatically create some, but we probably don't even need to do all that jazz. What we can do, let's take this guy, let's say object detail row, I suppose. Remove that. Object detail row controller. All we'll do is probably just have like the name and then maybe the list of interactions or recipes that we've discovered just as a count. So you can kind of see like oak trees. You've used 25 different tools on oak trees. So if we get rid of this guy now, put that guy in the content, we can get rid of our output item slot, bring this guy over, don't need ingredients, just kind of thinking through how we want to lay stuff out. We can have 0 recipe or 124 recipes. We'll call them notes maybe. And we'll say object name. This guy, maybe we make it a little yellower as like more of a positive thing, because that's the number you're building up. And let's give it a little more spacing. but the stack itself can be flattened. Something like that. Then when we get a bunch of them, it's going to look like that. Seems fine. We'll probably want some sort of like visual image or something. Maybe we could have an image for the category. So that's probably a good idea. Do an image here, category image, anchor it to the left, bring it in like that or so. Make it square, 64 by 64. Probably also means this guy can be more like that. So bring him in, bring the stack details over. Let's bring him in some more. And then this guy, let's see what we got. We got plant. We'll just make everything a bag for now. But we will make it the category, but it's whatever. Maybe not bag. It's so hard to navigate, like what a good find the good sprites for what we're looking for. Yeah. I'll just put a cursor for now, I guess. It's just a placeholder. I just wanted something that was different from the bag because we use the bag for item placeholders. But this is all looking good. If we go over to our GUI codex window components, now we have an object detail row. So let's populate that real fast. Well, we'll come back to that. What we want is this guy loop over our object tool database. Is that what we called it? Tool object. What did we call this? Database. Interactable object database. That's going to have all our recipes, which are just tool name, object name, result item name. So we'll need to group all of our recipes by object name. And then we will count the number of those recipes we have. We'll see how hard that is to do, but we will say list of, what do we call them, interactable object recipes. So that is that. Now we want to group recipes by object name. Okay. That's just the default thing. Okay. For each recipe, if we haven't added it to this dictionary yet, we initialize it with a new list. And then once that's done, we can add to that list. Cool. Cool. So then, for each recipe by object name, instantiate a row. So we'll do public game object row ref rows container and public game object prefab object detail row. So for each of the key value pairs, create a row in our container, and that's where we'll call our function of row controller dot load data of the key is the object name and the value is a list of objects. So we'll just say key value p dot key and key value pair dot value dot count. So now let's go make this function. And we'll call this object name recipe count. So then we can make this a little clearer and say recipe count and object name, just to make that clear what the heck this key and value are. We do need to clear all existing rows first. Cool. This is the detail window, so we don't need to do anything here, except we will come back to rig up click events maybe. But here we're drawing the index by building our index. We need to, let's do this. This works, but we need to sort our recipes by object name alphabetically. How would you do that? Like, there's a few different places we could add that sort in. I just want to see where it suggests we put it. So here, after we've built the dictionary, it's going to go through and sort what's going on here. Using the sorted recipes. That's some janky. Let's see it in the editor a little nicer. Like when you see this, you know you are going the wrong direction. But so we have a list of key value pairs, tuples of object name to list of recipes. And that is because recipes by object is a dictionary of object name to recipes, but dictionaries cannot be sorted. So we basically need to take this guy, put him in a list, and then sort that list by key. That makes sense. Where the key is the object name. All right. This is fine. This is janky, but fine. Cool. So that should all work. Let's go implement this, I suppose. So we've got a public text mesh pro UGI for object name. We've got one for note count. And we also have a public image for category image, but we will do nothing with that for now. So what we're going to do is just object name.text is object name, note count. Let's get rid of that. Dot text on object name. Oh, right. Let's call this label. Object name, label, note count. Cool. So if we set these references, that should work. So object name, note count, category image, apply those prefabs so they also exist on all the instances that we're about to create. Cool. So this guy also needs a button, and that button needs a click event. So we will say public button click event, and then we will say set up click event to load object what's it called? Codex object detail window with that object's data. Okay. I think we have a reference to this in UI references already, but if we don't, this is where we would add it. Object detail codex window. Yeah, that's right. So UI references .instance .object detail codex window. Cool. What's your method? Draw a window for interactable, giving it the name. Okay. Easy peas. And we probably also want to hide this window. So we'll say UI references.instance.object index codex window, which we haven't added yet, .hide window. So let's go add that. Coolio. Let's set that. Noise. So our rows should be rigged up. Oh, we do need an image in order to get the raycasting as a target, I mean. So let's just do maybe like a nice brownish gray. You know, nice color. A little dark brown. That looks pretty good. We get a bunch of those in. Yeah, that'll look good. Okay, so our window, we need our container reference, and we need our prefab object detail row. And we should be able to rig that up. Might just work already, actually. So this should load everything. We only need a way to open this window in the first place. So why don't we just add a little button for that right now to test, and then we can test it. So let's see. Let's save this prefab real fast, and then let's go over to our HUD, hotbar menu, right-hand side. We'll just copy our codex button. The right-hand side one will open our index window instead. And we'll get a proper way to open this up in a second, but we want show window. All right, does this work? Let's close all our windows so we don't start with anything. We will go chop down a tree, which will generate a recipe of what happens when you use an axe on a tree, which will populate our recipe database. And then when we open this window, we should be able to see that recipe database. So it's crafting that recipe of what happens. Let's just try it also with a hammer. Wonder what you get when you hit an oak tree with a hammer. Just so we have a couple things. It's probably not going to work. I'm just now realizing I didn't double check that we set all those references, but did we get an error? We did not. Okay, but does this bring us to oak tree? No. Okay, that's fine. We'll just debug it. Index window. I mean, we did a lot of janky stuff here, so let's see. Okay, so this will group our recipes. We then sort, destroy all the existing rows, which didn't fire. Oh, you know what it is? We never actually called. We never actually called the method to draw it. So on show, let's just draw the index. We'll probably end up doing the same thing we did in the other window where we store the most recent filter and redraw with that, but let's just do this again real fast. All right, let's do an axe on a bush. Why not? We get branches, big surprise. Okay, now we actually get an error. Good. Oh, yeah, we never set the button. That's the thing I was missing. So in our object detail row, this guy needs this button set there. All right, once more. So much nicer to have music in the background of these streams. All right, now we will use a fishing rod on an oak tree. And we will get an oak fish, I bet. Maybe not. Tangled branches, sure. Okay, so here, I guess we do start out with one recipe in the game, and that was a birch tree. If we click on oak tree, we get tangled branches. All right, so we're gonna need a little back button here to go back to your main index, but that works. Click on birch tree. If you use an axe, yeah, an axe. There's some weird, maybe we have raycasting on the frame or something. But an axe on a birch tree will give you birch logs. Why do those look so different? Oak tree, it's about the same. Okay. Well, cool, that works. Let's polish it up a little bit. So one thing we want to do, let's go back to our detail window. Let's look at our tool, this guy. See how this tool image tooltip is so terrible. So these guys don't need raycast frames. So that might already do it, but logically it shouldn't fix it. But we'll try that. The other thing we want to do is a little back button up here to go back to the index. So we can just copy this guy, bring a little exit button over yonder, and then maybe we find a better like arrow pointing left or something. You know, that's fine. Skip. And let's flip the sprite if we can. Oops. Can we just do that? -1 scale. Will the raycast still work? I don't know. I don't want to actually flip the image itself because it's used elsewhere. I just want to flip it on this sprite draw. Good enough. Alright, and the piece we need is a go back to index function. Navigate back to object index window. And that'll hide this window, draw the other window. Index, show window, and then here we hide window. It should be the same window, but sure. Cool. And so now we will rig up our back button to call that instead. Navigate back to object index. Give it a try. I guess we have one recipe to test with. We got our birch tree. Perfect. So now if we go use a saw on this birch tree over yonder, or I guess a closer one, and try this one. It's not going to refresh the window while we have it open. That's a known issue because we're not managing the windows very well. But we have 2 recipes now. We got our birch planks. We'll just fill it on up. Let's do a spade next. Whetstone, why not? We'll just fill it on up, see what we get. We want to change this to say like 3 notes or 3 something, 3 recipes, whatever. That's a cool image. Yeah, I can't wait for farming. I'm just going to spend all my days fishing and farming. A whittled fishing lure. Interesting. Useful for catching less cautious fish. Alright, whetstone on a birch tree. The age-old question, what do you get? Sharpened birch logs. I guess that makes sense. Crucible on a birch tree. Are we going to burn it down? You know what? Ooh, molten birch resin. That's pretty cool. Actually, if we take our crucible and if we use an axe, get some birch logs, can we make fire? Charcoal. Actually, what we can probably do, let's take our birch logs. Let's just go to the campfire. Can we get a torch if we use a birch log on the campfire? Guess I'll close this window. Also, like, I guess we could use scissors. So we got a brightly burning fire. Okay, cool. So if we take our brightly burning fire, what do we get if we use that on the birch tree? Charred birch logs. Okay. So that's fine. I think that'll be a lot cooler when one of the features that we're going to add pretty soon is, let's see, where'd it go? Yeah, whenever you interact with an object it's right now making a recipe. But we're also going to have a separate AI system in the background that determines what happens to the object that you're interacting with every time you interact with it. So like all those herbs that we placed earlier, they'll just, remove the object when you pick up the flower or whatever. Trees, if you use an axe on it, you could change the state of the tree, or like gemstones you might mine might turn into regular rocks or something once you get the gemstones, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of different actions that can happen to objects, and the plan is to ask the AI, hey, the player used this tool on this object. Here's a list of actions that can happen to that object. So delete it, reduce its size, change it to another object, blah, blah, blah. What happens to this object? And it gets saved in the recipe. So if, for example, it determines that using an axe on a birch tree should reduce the size of the birch tree, every time you use this axe on a birch tree, it's going to get smaller and smaller until it finally disappears. And that, I don't know if that's what we want to do, or if we want to have different states or something, or like track how much wood it has. There's lots of different ways that we can approach this problem. But if you also have plants and like trees and stuff be growing over time, that's a natural push and pull of, if you don't cut down trees, they're going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, probably up to a maximum size. And then there will be a lot of wood for you to harvest, versus if you do harvest this tree all the way down to like being small enough that it gets destroyed, then you've lost that resource and you need to go find trees elsewhere. It's kind of a like sustainability type thing play that you could do there. But the gist is there's a lot of different actions that can happen to objects, and I wanted to do this little experiment to see what happens when you use a brightly burning fire on a tree, because we might also want actions of like spawn an object in the world, like spawn a fire on the tree, or spawn, I don't know, a bee that comes out and attacks you, or whatever, depending on what the action is. Like, the key to making things feel really responsive is to have some sort of response, and it's very open-ended that way, but we do still need to hard code in some actual actions, because we need to code in that logic of what can happen to objects in the world. But I think the fun part will be coding in enough different things that every time you use an object on, or use a tool on an object, it feels reasonable, like you get an expected result, but it also can surprise you sometimes of like, oh, what happens if I use a tree, or if I use a fire on a tree? Oh man, I actually lit the tree on fire. That's crazy. But it's kind of fun to be able to, I had the thought of what happens if I use a tree on a fire, if I use a fire on a tree. So I made the fire by going over to the campfire, using the logs on the fire, blah, blah, blah. You saw. But it's kind of, I think there's definitely something in there of like, the creativity is really ready to unleash here. We just need to finish out a lot of these systems that we have planned for being able to interact with the world, or watching these NPCs interact with the world, or, lots of fun stuff. But we generated a bunch of recipes for birch tree during that process, so we actually have 8. And now, here's all the stuff we can see for that birch tree. Maybe let's run around in the world and generate a few more objects, because we have one for the campfire, because we used our, apparently that is still broken. And disabling the raycast on the frame now makes it so the actual object itself doesn't work. But let's just generate a few more recipes. Let's run around and light everything on fire, just so we can see how this window fills up too. And then we'll probably add the filters for the different categories. Let's see, oak tree, yeah. What else we got? We got pine tree, we've already done. We could do a little bush. Small bush. Ashes, okay. So our regular size bush, what do we got? Oop. Still got some bugs in interactions too. I know there's a little background processor running right now for determining what we get. Charred twigs, alright, alright. And let's do a maple tree finally, and then we'll check out our window. Charred maple logs, alrighty. Cool. So, if we were to now open up this window, we see all of the things that we can craft this way. And we also get a list of actually craftable ones that we can craft easy peas by just clicking on it. But now we can also open up this window and see all of the objects, which are sorted. LMNOPQRS, yeah. Let's actually, does it have the tabs? Okay, yeah. So it's not the prettiest thing because we don't really have images for each of these, but it is usable. So if you want to see like the recipes for the maple tree, here's all the stuff. And we'll probably want to put some numbers going up over here of like how many recipes you've created for that, blah, blah, blah. Birch tree, it'll fill out really nicely when the tools have images too, I think. Might be a little weird to have the tool on the right because that's what you're using versus like use this tool, get that, because we read left to right, but it's whatever. Put some fun stuff in here. It works pretty well, I'd say. So I think what I'll end up doing right now, do we want to do the filters? We might, but let's at least get this to say like one note or one notes, one recipes. Maybe we add something interesting in here. Maybe not. We'll do that later. But we want to combine these two windows, I'd say. Because we don't want two separate windows that we're navigating for basically the same thing. So what I'm going to do, I think, is just put two more tabs down here, or maybe up here, for items or objects, and you'll be able to flip between the two windows that way. But let's go ahead and make some small changes. So our notes here, and then also in our crafting window, we want to switch this back to just recipes that the player has discovered. But let's get to it. Object detail row. This guy, we can just say discovered interactions. Sure, that'll work for now. In our codex recipe window, codex window manager. Yeah, we got to rename that. We've kind of grown out of that name. Let's say codex recipe window manager, and I think that's going to break our button events that we've set up, but that's fine. We can rebuild them. So, codex recipe window. In this guy, control buttons, exit button. Okay, toggle window open still works. Let's actually use hide window though. We're gonna want to do all this in prefab mode, maybe not. But let's go check out our tabs. So we've got this bad boy. We want to call this recipe filter tabs container, and we're going to move it down a bit because now we're also going to have codex bookmarks container. We'll move that up, and we're going to have two for recipes and objects. And objects, we can use, can't remember the hand we used, what that was called, but it's whatever. I think it was actually called cursor. So let's just find one of these. Yeah, that'll do it. Do a little label of objects. And recipes. So this needs to live in both, I guess, all three of these codex windows. So it might be worth combining like them into one window proper instead of trying to manage when you show one, you also hide the others. I think that might be the case. So before we do all that, let's check in what we've got. Bunch of stuff because we made a ton of prefab changes in order to get our sorting working, to procrastinate building the UI that we didn't build. But let's do this. Let's say hook up object index UI in codex. Excuse me. And let's just make this all one big window, I suppose. Kind of in the same way we did with the NPC window. Right. Open. So here we have two tabs, conversation and trading, and they just toggle these two, conversation container and trading container. So I think we'll do something very similar there. So we will have contents, sure, for now. And so in here we will have recipe index. We will have object index and object detail. So this is actually closer to pages. And then what we will take is content container and information container. Those are the recipe bits. All right, I was worried we'd need to do all this in the prefab mode. It's all good. So let's go on in here, collapse everything because, you know. Right, we need to go in here, then apply these prefabs, then go in the codex recipe window for whatever reason. Okay, so content container and information container are in the recipe index page. Similarly, we should put the recipe filter tabs container there as well. So when this page is active, we'll see them, but when we deactivate this page for another page, we won't see those filters. It's a good song too. Alrighty. So the pain of doing this all in a prefab is we need to go grab stuff in another prefab now. So let's do that. We will grab our index window first. Let's grab this guy. I guess we will want tabs. So we want tabs and content. We're also going to need to manage the window title, I bet, but we can deal with that later. We want to grab these guys. Come back to the codex window. And bring them into the object index page. If I can paste, I cannot paste. Let's try this again. Tabs, content, copy, codex window, paste. Alright. Recipe index we can disable, so we're just looking at this now. Content container. It's cool. We actually, yeah. Let's resize these pages real fast. So this guy, let's do this. Take this stuff out. Now we can resize this guy. Expand to the whole everything. Right, pages is also small. So all this stuff. Take out all this stuff. Now we can expand pages to the full thing. Maybe we bring it down like this. We use that as our border for everything. And we'll just expand everything to whatever the pages thing is. So let's bring this back in. We have recipe index. This guy expands to the full page's size. In the recipe index, we have the information container and the content container, I believe. Content container. Is that? Yeah, that's right. So both of these guys go in there. Great. And we can get them expanding later, but at least they're not going to break. Hey, Cozy. I see you in there. I actually gave you a shout out at the beginning of this stream for showing me how to set up my music. Welcome in. And thanks for using my brand new WTF command. I'm thinking the same thing as I'm working through this code. Alright, here's our other two pages we can now bring in and expand. Cool. That should now be rigged up. Let's go expand our first page. Make it look a little nicer. cool. So even when all the pages are off, we still get the tabs, which we want. Object detail is our last page. Let's go grab that stuff. It's just content and information. Copy. Alrighty, now to get it all actually working. So let's rename this back to just Codex Window Manager now that it handles all of our windows. Let's rename some stuff. Cool. I almost wrote a bug, and then I didn't. So all we need to get this working is just this guy working. We need to adjust this logic a little bit to actually reference the new page. And we need to rig up these buttons to switch pages. Coolio. Should work. We'll find out. So in this window, now we have tabs for recipes or objects. Recipes should do nothing. It does lag because we have a ton of recipes. So we know it's actually working because if you click it, it redraws the tab. Excellent, excellent. If you click objects, that ain't it. It's probably this button is rigged up wrong. Set codex filter. Yeah, not it. We needed separate functions for each of them. Public void. Switch to recipes. Index. And so now these buttons we actually want this guy switch to recipes index and this guy switch to object index. Wow. Now why are you so small? Oh right, it's supposed to be small. Alright, does this work? We are on recipes. If we click objects, we're on objects. We're not hiding recipes well, but it is working. Something's funky, but you can switch back to recipes. We do need to do the highlight on the tabs. I think we're just not showing or not hiding the other things correctly. So if we go in, we can inspect it. I haven't heard the song in so long. Alrighty, so right now, codex window is active, recipe index is active. If we click a filter, it's still active. If we click object index, oh right, because we do have tabs on the objects. Okay. Okay, I think it's working. It's just that the tabs are in different spots, so it looks weird. We'll reset those. Alright. And then if we go to objects and click on an object, it opens the object detail page. Right. Actually, this button, wherever we set up the button, object index, load data, this guy, actually want now it'll open in the same window instead of opening our separate windows that we built. That was one funky bit. Right, but we still need this logic for redraw object detail page. Did we really not rename that? Okay, so that should work. We just gotta call this I actually want that here. Right, we don't want to pass through the text. That's fine. And lastly, I think if we go in here, take our back button, and drop it in here. When we turn on the detail page, it'll activate that back button, and we can set that to call switch to object index. Easy. Alright, let's line up these tabs. So this guy, paste. And yeah, I guess we can hook up these tabs next, but I want to get the highlight on switching between these two working, and then we'll also hook up the tabs for filtering the objects as well. We also want to do some text manipulation on the title, but we can hold off on that too. Let's make sure that everything works now. So we default to recipes as we should. Recipe filters still works. We can click to objects, scroll through those, click on birch tree, does not work. Oh right, we renamed the reference, so gotta go change that. So we need detail. That guy's our content container, and we need our rows. I feel like this song already played. Maybe not. It's a bop. I think it did play, but I'll listen to it again. Let's try this again. Objects, birch tree, back, birch tree, recipes, objects. Nice, all works. Some unrelated bugs elsewhere, but still need to fix some of these tooltips, but this is way better, I'd say. So we want to do the highlight effect on these two, showing the one that you have active instead of always showing that. And we also want to add the filters for the objects as well. I think we only have 3 filters. Alright, let's do the highlight effects. We can also get rid of these guys, which is a little scary to do, but oh well, it's fine. And we can get rid of our second codex button that was just temporary since we combined all three into one window. Okay, so we want to do highlights. Alright, codex filter button. That's where we do highlights, I think. Just inactive background, active background. I think we can move that up. Yeah, it's gonna get a little finicky because this is very hard-coded to recipe filtering, and we're also gonna do it on object filtering. So maybe we just move that up a little bit. Or we don't. We don't gotta do this right now. Trying to think through how we want to do this. So if we have our codex window, we have our bookmarks container. Each of these guys should not have a codex filter button script, first of all, but could have a highlightable button script that points to like a list of highlightables, and then whenever any of them are clicked, it unhighlights everything in their list and just highlights them. Alternatively, like up here, we could define buttons on them, or we could, for each one, hard code all the other buttons to unhighlight when they're clicked. There's a lot of different ways we could do it, but none of them are very good. I think we're going to go with the simplest solution, and I will show you 5 lines from now when it's done. Highlightable button in linked group. What a name. Might be the perfect name, actually. So all this button's gonna do, we'll have an active button, inactive background, but we will also have public highlight list highlightable button in linked group, linked buttons, and we will have a public void highlight. I'm surprised that this works if we're not calling the function that we wrote. I'm actually very confused at why this would work and does work, but it's fine. So unhighlight all linked buttons. We want... Wait. How does this work? I feel like I must be mixing up what I set up earlier. Because these buttons work, but they don't have function calls on the button event themselves, right? So this guy here, which is currently displayed, right? Oh, I'm in prefab mode. I bet I set them up out in the world. That's fine. We'll just double check that. So if we open it up, this codecs window should have bookmarks container. Okay, yeah, the button is set up properly out here. It's like, how does this work if we're not doing anything correctly at all? But we are. Cool. So we can fix that. So now we have the correct button event, and we can link each other here. Let's turn this on so we can see what we're working with. But all we are going to do is, for an active button, we'll use a green highlight effect. For inactive, we'll use gray. And we'll link that guy. Oh, right. We haven't added it yet. Copy that. Put them over here. We'll just do this super janky approach that is the simplest and easy to rip out later. But all we're going to do is, now they are highlightable when you click on them, and they also have a bunch of linked buttons that they unhighlight when you click on them. So this guy and this guy. Now when you click on either of them, they should highlight themselves and unhighlight all their linked buttons. So let's rig that up real fast. We just say, where is our image script? Public image background. Gotta set it real fast. Cool. And let's make sure they don't have the codecs filter button, which is what was handling the highlights. And let's test that. Okay, so unhighlight is not working. It's possible that highlight is working, but they both start highlighted. I didn't write the logic for either of them, so obviously neither of them are going to work. Background dot sprite is equal to inactive background. Ta-da! And background dot sprite is active background. All right, now we can actually test it. Okay. Not quite. But why? Active. Let's start We don't want to unhighlight on start, but we can default them to unhighlighted here. Gray. Gray. Oh, right. Well, we'll do that again. Gray. Gray. And right. These are also not being called, which is fine, because all we're going to do is add this guy. Highlight. And we're actually going to call it highlight and unhighlight all linked highlightables. Type that 5 times fast. Cool. So this guy, highlight and unhighlight all linked highlightables. Perfect, perfect. And this guy as well. We'll do the same. All right. Now I believe that this will work. They are unhighlighted to start. If I click on objects, it highlights. Recipes, it highlights. Wow. And so if I do a filter, yeah, it persists. Okay, cool. And it persists separately between the 2 categories. Cool. All right. Well, that looks perfect. Let's wrap up a little bit. Let's check in what we've got. We've got merge all the codex windows into the best, most amazing codex window you've ever seen. We'll clean up some of these scripts too. It's fine. And then let's go take a look at all our to-do tasks. Started on that as well, and I would say that's actually, I mean, was there any big to-dos that we needed? I mean, the filters, I guess, on objects. We could just disable those tabs though. But let's say should probably have filter codex objects index by category, by object category. We'll put that over and should probably have, since this was a need to have task, we can call that done. And also the foliage spawning, it's mostly done. All the logic is done. We just want to add more of it to the world. So I'll go run over and check that out as I'm saying bye, I suppose. But thanks for tuning in, everyone, this week. I think the background music has been a very nice touch, both for me and somebody popped in earlier and said that it was good for them as well. So I think it's a good approach, or it makes the stream more fun. So we will be back next week at 2 o'clock, or at 1 o'clock, sorry. Same time as this stream every week on Tuesday. So if you enjoyed hanging out, you want to see some more of this game, we got a lot more to build, but we are getting closer and closer to a Steam demo release, and I'm excited to share it with you. So with that said, I will probably not raid anyone with just a couple viewers this week, but it's been fun. So yeah, let me know what you think. I will see you guys next week as we collect a bunch of buggy items. Alrighty, well, have fun, guys. See ya.